We are live.
Yay! Made it through another weekend. I am old new dude. He is.
Richard York, Astro's trueborn son.
Um, Glad you could be with us this Monday. Didn't realize it was a holiday. Kids are at the house, but I got them watching a movie in the other room. Um, this is the first official chapter of Clash of Kings Arya 1. And it's not a long chapter, it's a lot of setup, but it's still a pretty good chapter. If you
Yeah,
want,
there's not a whole lot that happens other than Arya knows how to use a sword, and Hot Pie learns that through his misfortune.
exactly. So, have you watched any of these? You know that we start with what Richard saw in the chapter, the brains of the operation, and then I jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. Shout out to Lizzie for making it to book club last Friday night. She came with knowledge. It was awesome. I got to hear her voice instead of just seeing what she types on these things. It was great. I had a blast. Um,
Well, thanks to Lizzie and Lady Thistle, our live comments are often more knowledgeable than we are, so that certainly adds
Yeah, no,
something.
I mean, I go ahead and tell you. I mean, Lizzie came with knowledge. She was ready to
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
So,
Usually, when I'm not sure what she's talking about, it's because I forgot something that she remembered.
all right. Well, take it away.
At Winterfell, they had called her Arya Horseface, and she thought nothing could be worse. But that was before the orphan boy Lami Greenhands had named her Lumpy Head. Her head felt lumpy when she touched it. When Yorn had dragged her into that alley, she thought he meant to kill her. But the sour old man had only held her tight, sawing through her mats and tangles with his dagger. So Arya's life was definitely easier back when she was Arya Horseface, that's for sure.
Definitely.
You keep to
Well,
yourself and make your water in the woods alone. That'll be the hardest part, the pissing. So I think Alaris is likely skilled with glamours. So Arya lacks that skill, at least at this point in the story. And so I don't necessarily buy the logic that Alaris can't be Sorella. And I think George, as usual, has written an ambiguous book where he leaves himself open to various options.
yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, I'm not on
This was
board
fun. Thank you.
with the Alaris being a girl. I still
No, I get that people aren't. I'm just saying I think that it can be easily be explained that Alaris can be. Like I said, it's ambiguous and I certainly see the logic of um, Shay knowing way too much about that family.
yeah.
She does know way too much about that family. Anyway, um, so both Toodles and the Order of the Green Hand argue that the reason that Shay knows so much about that family is that Shay is actually one of Oberyn's daughters.
Yeah.
Um, in case people haven't ever heard that theory. Arya never looked back. She wished the rush would rise and wash the whole city away. Flea Bottom and the Red Keep and the Great Sept and everything. And everyone too, especially Prince Joffrey and his mother. But she knew it wouldn't. Anyhow, Sansa was still in the city and would wash away too. When she remembered that, Arya decided to wish for Winterfell instead. So Arya would not wish ill on her sister, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
The worst were the three he'd found in the black cells who must have scared even him because he kept them fettered hand and foot in the back of a wagon and vowed they'd stay in irons all the way to the wall. One had no nose, only the hole in his face where it had been cut off, and the gross fat baldwin with the pointed teeth and the weeping sores on his cheek had eyes like nothing human. Meet Origin Biter. I guess the third man wasn't important enough to mention.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, if you have read the graphic novels, I'm assuming they're George approved graphic novels.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they
Um,
are.
when they're leaving Winterfell and you see the wagons and the people walking and all that stuff, the third man is hooded. You can see George,
Mm-hmm.
you can see Biter, but in that buggy, that third man, Jaqen Nagar, is hooded. You can't
Yeah,
even see
yeah.
his face.
So it's the same thing. He's deliberately trying to hide Jockin's face from us for now.
Right, right. And I still really think it's odd that we get the descriptions of the two people, but not a man with half his head red and the other half white. You would think that you would
Right.
get.
That
I
would
mean,
be
I'm not
the
saying
most
he's not
distinct.
there.
That'd be the most distinct That's an unusual thing that we would catch your eye, and so you'd think that you would mention it. Yeah,
You would think.
so much fun, and thank you. Like Blood Raven and Dug and Egg, hooded. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Um, yeah, one of the things that's about the graphic novels is that he edits Ashara out of those too, right? So he's retelling his story. I don't know. I guess I haven't read all of them. Maybe that's not true, but I did read through the first part where the Cat 2 where I joined you in this live stream, and you read through, and it seems like he deliberately edits Ashara Dane out of the retellings of this story, which kind of makes sense if her name is historic, is symbolic of the concept of Asherah's the Dione being edited out of history. Um, Look at the sword Lumpyhead's got there, Lamy said one morning as they made their plodding way past orchards and wheat fields. He'd been a dyer's apprentice before he was caught stealing, and his arms were mottled green to the elbow. When he laughed, he brayed like the donkeys they were riding. LML would probably call green spotted arms children of the forest symbolism. Just happened to notice it. So,
Yeah.
Arya chewed her lips sullenly. She could see the back of Yoren's faded black cloak up ahead in the wagons, but she was determined not to go crying to him for help. So Arya does chew her lip when considering her options. She actually does that later that I didn't bother to include. It's pretty common for her.
Yeah.
It's kind of a trait.
Her and John.
Yep. I bet it's just some play sword made of tin. Arya hated them making fun of Needle. It's Castle-forged steel, you stupid, she snapped, turning in the saddle to glare at him. Then you better shut your mouth. Arya won't tolerate disrespect of Needle or John, as we're about to see.
Yeah.
He probably stole it. I did not, she shouted. Jon Snow had given her Needle. Maybe she had to let them call her Lumpyhead, but she wasn't going to let them call John a thief. Yeah, like we said, Arya won't tolerate this.
Yeah.
Hot Pie kicked his donkey, riding closer. Hey, Lumpy Face. This is actually the second time he calls her Lumpy Face. Lamy corrected him the first time. You give me that sword. His hair was the color of straw, his fat face all sunburned and peeling. You don't know how to use it? Yes, I do, Arya could have said. I killed a boy, a fat boy like you. I stabbed him in the belly and he died. And I'll kill you too if you don't let me alone. Only she did not dare. Yoren didn't know about the stable boy, but she's afraid of what he might do if he found out. Meet Hot Pie. Ben, I think it's Hockey, doesn't have hair the color of straw, but as usual, I tend to picture the actors. Also, he keeps saying Lumpy Face.
Yeah.
Leave him be, said the boy with the shaggy black hair who rode behind them. Lamy had named him the Bull on account of this horned helm he had, he polished all the time but never wore. Lamy didn't dare mock the Bull. He was older and big for his age, with a broad chest and strong-looking arms. So on reread, we know who the Bull is. Meet Gendry.
Yeah.
You can have this one, she told Hot Pie, not wanting to fight. That's just some stick. He rode nearer and tried to reach over for Needle's hilt. Arya made the stick whistle as she laid the wood across his donkey's hindquarters. The animal hawed and bucked, dumping Hot Pie on the ground. She vaulted off her own donkey and poked him in the gut as he tried to get up. He sat back down with a grunt. Then she whacked him across the face, and his nose made a crack like a branch breaking. Blood dribbled from his nostrils. When Hot Pie began to wail, Arya whirled toward Lamy Greenhands, who was sitting on his donkey open-mouthed. You want some sword too? She yelled. But he didn't. He raised dyed green hands in front of his face and squealed at her to get away. The bull shouted, behind you! And Arya spun. Hot Pie was on his knees, his fist closing around a big, jagged rock. She let him throw it, ducking her head as it sailed past. Then she flew at him. He raised a hand and she hit it, and then his cheek, and then his knee. He grabbed her and she danced aside and bounced the wood off the back of his head. He fell down and got up and stumbled after her, his red face all smeared with dirt and blood. Arya slid into a water dancer stance and waited. When he came close enough, she lunged right between his legs so hard that if her wooden sword had had a point, it would have come out between his butt cheeks. By the time Yoren pulled her off him, Hot Pie was sprawled out on the ground with his breeches brown and smelly, crying as Arya whacked him over and over and over. Enough, the Black Brother roared, prying the stick sword from her fingers. You want to kill the fool? Actually, that enough reminds me of Jon's two encounters, right? The one where he tells I'm blanking on which one of the Watchmen it is that tells him enough after he tells him enough. But you know what I'm talking about, right? There's two different fights, right? Where he says enough to one of the Watchmen, and the Watchman says enough to him.
Yeah.
When he's going after,
especially the one where he's the Watchman. I think it's Iron Emmett, maybe.
Yeah, Iron Emmett's the one. No, Iron Emmett's
yeah.
the one that he's beating up, but the guy who stops him is the one that was beating up Sam.
Okay.
You scream now. You scream loud. I won't, Arya thought stubbornly, but when Yoren laid the wood against the back of her thighs, the shriek burst out of her anyway. So Yoren is obligated to treat her like a lowborn orphan bound for the wall. So he's telling her to scream as part of their cover story. But Arya's so obstinate and just a kid that she doesn't realize what's actually happening here.
Yeah.
The stroke made her jump and howl. I won't cry, she thought. I won't do that. I'm a Stark of Winterfell. Our sigil is the direwolf. Direwolves don't cry. But she did howl.
This is true.
They're not my brothers, Arya thought as she bent to yank up her breeches, but she knew better than to say so. Her hands fumbled with her belt and laces. Yoren was looking at her. You hurt? Calm as still water, she told herself, the way Syra Farrell had taught her. Some. So Arya's still Arya, still reciting her mantras, and Yoren doesn't really want to hurt her. He just wanted to get her attention and, more importantly, sell their cover story.
Right. And her walking for the next three or 4 days help sell that story because she's in pain.
Right. It wasn't supposed to happen like it did. I was set to leave, wagons bought and loaded, and a man comes with a boy for me and a purse of coin and a message. Never mind who it's from. Lord Eddard's to take the black, he says to me. Wait, he'll be going with you. Why do you think I was there? Only something went queer. Joffrey, Arya breathed. Someone should kill him. Someone will, but it won't be me, nor you neither. So there's some nice foreshadowing.
Yeah. I didn't pick up on it on my reread or any of the reads, but just now, and a purse of coin and a message. Never mind you, never mind who it's from. And then we get I'm thinking of the scene where the Yellow Cloaks are handing him a royal message saying they're there for Gendry.
Right.
In my mind, the who the message is from here is a royal message. So
it's Varys using his authority, and he's telling him that you're going to be going to be he's warning him that he's going to be hunted basically, right? He's aware that Varys was acting at that point really with his own authority, but he wasn't directly in conflict with anyone else at that point. He's I don't know. I don't know how to express what I'm saying here, but my point is that Varys is sort of looking after Robert and his interests, and that Joffrey wasn't really in charge yet. Ned hadn't been beheaded yet, and so forth. So
I'm saying that it's not a message from Varys, even though he might have been the person that brought Gendry or instructed the person that brought Gendry. But for him, the whole point of never mind who it's from, the message in my mind is it's got to be from Cersei.
It could be Ned.
What's that?
It could be from Ned.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, we kept saying, well, Ned said that, would it be allowed to write messages? And Varys is like, yeah, you can write whatever message you want. I may or may not deliver them. I'm going to read them. I'll decide whether or not it serves my interest to deliver them. It could actually have been from Ned. It's ambiguous, obviously. But I like that concept. Yeah, I like that concept that theoretically it could be from Ned. Anyway.
Yeah. That's freaking awesome. I didn't even think about that.
Lamy Greenhands wasn't even hurt, yet he stayed as far away from Arya as he could get. Every time you look at him, he twitches, the bull told her as she walked beside his donkey. So Lamy's cowardice is being established here, which is kind of important in the story.
I yield.
The comet was splendid and scary all at once. The red sword, the bull named it. He claimed it looked like a sword, the blade still red hot from the forge. When Arya squinted the right way, she could see the sword too. Only it wasn't a new sword, it was ice, her father's great sword, all ripply Valyrian steel, and the red was Lord Eddard's blood on the blade after Sir Ilyn, the king's justice, had cut off his head. Yorn had made her look away when it happened. It had seemed to her that the comet looked like ice must have after. When at last she slept, she dreamed of home. The King's Road wound its way past Winterfell on its way to the wall, and Yorn had promised he'd leave her there with no one any wiser about who she'd been. She yearned to see her mother again, and Robb and Bran and Rickon, but it was Jon Snow she thought of most. She wished somehow they could come to the wall before Winterfell, so Jon might muss up her hair and call her little sister. She'd tell him, "I missed you," and he'd say it too at the very same moment, though they always used to say things together. She would have liked that. She would have liked that better than anything. So, if only. Interesting. We get that. We get that. And Robb and Bran and Rickon kind of expression there, right? So,
Yeah.
but it was Jon Snow she thought of most. So it's almost like it's tying that whole sibling separated by Anne thing to Jon Snow, right? And
Yeah.
then immediately referring to the little sister thing. So it kind of fits the pattern in a way.
What stuck out to me was, and it's one of those little light bulb moments I get. I missed you, and he would say it too at the very same time. The way they always used to say things together.
Mm-hmm.
Now she is the only Tully baby that looks like a Stark, and he definitely looks like Stark. And do you think possibly there could be some kind of link?
Some sort of psychic connection, yeah.
Right,
it is
right.
Interesting. It is interesting the way Arya is certainly she's well in touch with the gift in that she's able to be connecting to first to first to Nymeria across the sea, and then to the various cats around and so forth, right? So she's certainly a very strong skin changer. So the idea that they might have some sort of psychic bond seems reasonable, especially if they're clearly two of the closest, if not the very closest pair. Maybe Robb and Jon are as close potentially, but I don't think there's anybody else that rivals that other than that potentially that one. There's no other rival in terms of closeness and bond amongst the Starks.
Well, I just thought it was it just stood out to me that, well, wait a minute, I didn't even think about this. Could this be some kind of mental?
Yeah.
And
we're talking about two gifted telepaths who are tightly bonded, communicating together. So it certainly could be some magic involved.
Yeah, she does think of Jon quite a bit through her story.
Yeah.
Short chapter.
And I would say, and it seems extremely likely that Jon's probably thinks of Arya the most and Robb the second most too, right? So thinking of those as the closest bonds. Now, obviously, Robb's dead. He has more reason to be wishing for Arya and so forth. But
we're led to believe that Bran is the strongest.
Yeah, he probably is or will be with the tutelage he's getting and so forth.
Yeah, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, is he the strongest? I mean, we're
he's
either
told
that he's a green seer.
He's certainly probably going to be the best trained.
Right.
Well, I mean, Arya's also getting trained, but her training is a little less focused on telepathic ability.
Right. I just thought it's something that popped out in my head. And there's not a whole lot in this chapter, so I had to grab for straws on some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You did want to talk some more about the prologue, did you?
Yeah. Lady Thistle wanted to talk about something getting on early at the book club, something that was said toward the end of the day or toward the end of the last live stream. And I couldn't remember what we were talking about at the time. But with the other stuff that's in that chapter, if Lady Thistle or Lady oh my goodness, Lady Thistle and Lizzie, if they had any questions or anything they want to throw out there, I know Lizzie definitely going to have an opinion on the last chapter. But some of the things that popped out of my head that we didn't really go into was light is the most worshipped when it's darkest, the god of flame and shadow. I think we touched on it, but and it kind of piggybacks with blood flame sunsets, which sunsets would be the long night.
We did talk about that one.
We touched on it, but
briefly, right?
Yeah, the Lord of Light would be worshipped the most when it's dark.
Yeah, that certainly makes
Just
sense.
like the night fires, they're
Dogs are crazy. They're barking at the back. They're barking at the back window. I don't know why they'd be barking at the back window. But, hey, Sammy!
It's a squirrel.
Come here. Should be. Or there's sometimes a coyote back there. I mean, behind the fence. Sammy. Hey, Sammy. Everybody likes you. Why don't you come up here? Why don't you come up here? People like to look at your crazy. People like to look at your crazy eyeballs with their brown on top and blue. The blue eyes with brown on top. Yes. Yes. People like to look at you. Yes.
I just think it's odd. Not odd, but for the Lord of Light, it's better for him to be the long night. He's going to get worshipped even more
while
the long night is going on.
It does make you question whether Mel has things backwards, right? That maybe the Lord of Light actually wants to bring on the darkness, and yeah, that's interesting.
Well, we get go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a completely different topic. I was completely a rabbit hole that came from me re-listening to it. But when you mean Nights came? When King Night comes? Maybe she just typed it backwards. Or Long Night. Instead of King. I don't know. Lizzie, you got some strange choices there. You put King Night. We're trying to figure out whether that's intentional or not. Won't it just be the others? What's the end game when all the humans are gone? That's what I want to know. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Is that you don't want to. I don't think we're claiming that R'hllor wants to totally kill all the humans. I think we're claiming that Long Night. Okay. Yeah, I thought it might be Long Night rather than Night King.
Well, stop and think about it. Okay, he doesn't want the humans to lose right now in Westeros. There's only a handful of people on Dragonstone that are supposedly worshiping the Lord of Light, but in the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, that's a no-go. They're not worshiping the Lord of Light. And in the past, we know that the first men cut down and burned the weirwood trees, and there is the theory that the R'hllor is an offshoot of what the first men actually worshipped before they took up the old gods and stuff like that. So the last time you had the Lord of Light being worshipped during the long night, and which is after the pact, right? The first men and the children of the forest make a pact, and the first men's going to take over their old gods, and then we have the first long night, right?
I don't know if it's all that clear. First off,
I can't remember.
History is deliberately unclear, but so I don't know that part's entirely clear. Certainly I had the same thoughts as LML as far as the fact that some of this history could be conflating different events and things, right? And specifically the most obvious one being that the Night's King might actually have the 13 years of rule may be it may actually be the long night, that the rather than being the 13th Lord Commander after the establishment of the wall, after the long night, that may have been part of the long night. And it's certainly true that it seems to be implied by Ygritte that the Night's King's actual name was that he was a Stark named Jon Snow, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be what's being implied.
I'm just saying, if there's another long night, every single person in Westeros will be worshiping fire.
Right. No, I get it. You're saying that that it's possible that this is a um, deliberate occurrence, a self-fulfilling prophecy in order to get humanity on the side of the Lord of Light, right?
Right.
And then hopefully rescue humanity. So sort of like people think that it was Illyrio and Varys' plan that the Dothraki would be invading and that young Griff would come riding to the rescue. Is how many people interpret. I'm not 100% sold on that partially because I think that he's lying about so much of his plans that I'm not sure what his plans were. So one of I tweet the reason I tweeted at you over the weekend was that I was following this rabbit hole is completely off topic of your off topic discussion of meteor swords as I was listening to the episode, right?
Yeah.
And I came across that one that somebody's trying to sell in America for $10,500.
Yeah, you let me borrow $10,500.
No.
Okay.
Hand the prophecy off to Cersei. She's an expert at making sure they don't come true. Oh yeah. Yeah, just like Melisandre was great at preventing Renly from leading the forces against Stannis and defeated the Blackwater.
Well, I mean, when it comes to that sword, I mean, we're told about Valyrian steel in the first book. I mean, it is a logical jump to associate Valyrian steel with dragon steel. I mean, they got Valyria, they got the Dragon Lords, they make Valyrian steel with dragon fire and sorcery. So having a dragon steel, it's logical. It's the automatic jump from dragon steel to Valyrian steel. They even say it in the book. And in my mind, I'm like, well, anytime that there's a jump that is assumed or easily it's assumed that you need to make to continue that chapter or that
paragraph. And that's kind of why, even though it's somewhat off topic, I did that as a retweet of an old tweet to Austin Flowers, right? Where I replied Austin Flowers where he was talking about somebody who was like the real life Tobo Mod, and I said, but part of the point was that there's a difference between, let's say, the Riosetto and Damascus steel, right? And one of the advantages of some of these meteor swords, such as the 5 Riosetto Japanese blades, is that they are higher carbon iron than what would normally be made by traditional steel that wasn't Damascus steel.
Right.
And so as in A Song of Ice and Fire, Damascus steel is while there are people that think they've figured out what it was and how it worked, it's not 100% certain that they've actually got it right, that we really know what the lost art of Damascus steel.
Yeah.
And it's 20th and 21st century high carbon steel is still better than Damascus steel, but certainly it was the best thing before that, right? When it comes to Lightbringer, can any sword be it as long as the sacrifice is made? Like, it depends on who wields it. Like, it doesn't have to be Longclaw or any specific blade. I mean, you're exactly on topic of what we're talking about here, right? Which is we were theorizing that it might be Dawn, that it might actually be a meteor sword, and that was old Dude's point in the previous one, which he was just bringing up as an example where characters came to a conclusion and the fandom then comes to the same conclusion for the most part, and the question is that really what George is saying, or are his characters as usual wrong, and so maybe Dragonsteel is in fact Dawn, right? I think it'll be Dawn. I was just wondering. So it might be that it's the process of the sacrifice that matter. That's certainly possible. You do have to wonder, maybe Lightbringer is Dany's sword for Jorah, right? She's promised Dany in Dany's last chapter, and she's promised that she would make a longsword like no one has ever seen, that would be dragon forged and given to Jorah, right? So it's possible that she's going to make the new Lightbringer somehow, right? She's promised she's going to make something that nobody's ever seen, so maybe she's.
Well, I'm assuming the sword that she's talking about, which could easily be the next Lightbringer, It's going to be
Right.
forged from Drogon's flame. His flames
Yeah,
will be involved. I
that's
mean,
the implication. She's
yeah,
claiming that she's going to somehow, and maybe she's had some vision as to how this needs to be done or something, right? The way she's talking as if she's capable of making a sword that like no one has ever seen, and of course she's being inspired by her dragon dreams at this point. So maybe she
yeah.
really does
Oh, I
have.
mean, is it an easily assumed idea that she has the knowledge in her brain now
Right,
to
right.
know
That
how to make?
she has, or that foreseen herself being able to forge this super sword to save the world or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
well,
mean, it's obviously not very clear, or
right.
we might say deliberately ambiguous.
Yeah, it's true. Now, and I get still speaking about swords. Um, when she's talking about the comment or comment, uh, Gendry says it's like a new sword being forged out of the fire, red hot,
Mhm.
and she compares it to ice.
I,
And in my head, I'm thinking, well, ice it's one hand wide. It's what 6 feet long. I mean, it's just this huge sword of Valerian steel. How did the Starks? How were they able to afford that sword? And then you have it being reforged, and the guy making a comment that Valerian steel tends to go back to what it was originally formed to. It has its own mind on the way it wants to be reforged. Then you have a bastard sword, and you got an arming sword from ice. In my head was, I know it's the theory out there, and I tend to lean towards it. Was ice given to House Stark by Bloodraven, and it is the reforging of the two Targaryen swords, Dark Sister and uh, what's the name of the sword?
Blackfire,
Blackfire. Yeah, Blackfire.
Blackfire,
Those two swords were reforged into ice and
yeah.
given to the Starks. I know there's a theory out there. I don't know who did it or anything like that, but I like leaning on it.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I tend to think that we are going to see Dark Sister, and that Dark Sister is Val's sword, right? Because who I think Val is, but
Yeah,
see
that would
Triple
be awesome.
Targaryens, episode 7. Anyway,
Yeah,
actually,
I still can't get my head around how these two northern houses, the Mormonts and the Starks, how either one of them had enough gold
well,
to.
The Starks are pretty freaking rich. There's actually several hints dropped throughout the series that Ned had a whole lot of access to resources.
Well,
He
they're
kind
the
of
third richest lord in the north. You got the Mormonts as richer than them, and
sure.
House Bolton is actually richer than House Stark, and then House Stark is the third richest in the north. So, but still, I can't.
There's definitely clues dropped that Ned is actually really like when he outfits his people with new equipment and armor and stuff. It's like it's nothing to him to just have like
He doesn't
having
hoard his money. He spends it
yeah
wisely.
yeah yeah.
But it still leaves
He's
House.
not going for extravagance. He's not throwing around for extravagance sake, but he definitely has access to quite a bit of resources.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just look at the way he dresses. He dresses the way he should for in the north. A lot of wool, no
Yeah,
silk, no. I mean, nothing's
right, right.
extravagant. It's gray and white.
More months for.
Yeah, I still think they ain't got a whole lot of money on Bear Island.
No, I don't think the Woolmans are all that. We're all. Well, I mean, they're certainly less rich now. Thanks to
Definitely.
that.
But
Yes.
all right. Anything else we want to talk about?
No, it's all right. I mean, it's been more than half an hour on the chapter that
Yeah,
was extremely short.
yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Yeah, I ain't got a whole lot for this one or for the prologue. I think we covered everything I wanted to say.
Good. Sansa's up next, including some of the quotes that at least one quote that I felt strengthened the argument for Triplet Targaryen's episode 5. It's right there at the beginning of the chapter, right? The comment, and what it represents. And it represents that Joffrey is the dragon's heir.
Yeah. I can't believe you squeezed one on this chapter.
Oh, I mean, actually, there was we were kind of dancing around with the you were kind of referring to the ashram and stuff, right? The burning of the ashram, or the equivalent of
Yeah.
you know, our worlds, and we were also talking about editing out Chardonnay's name for the graphic novel. So we didn't explicitly say that those topics are covered in the first 2 episodes of Triple Targaryen, but those topics are covered in the first 2 episodes of Triple
Targaryen. At least Lizzie got the calendar today.
Yeah.
All right. You on for Wednesday?
Yep, I think so.
All right. Well, Wednesday, Sansa 1 of A Clash of Kings, same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, we just had somebody pop in there toward the end. Got our viewership up to 4.
Welcome to our 4
welcome
viewers.
To the end of it. I mean, you might want to just go back and watch the reread on it, or the rewatch, but we appreciate it.
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
So Sansa 1 on Wednesday, 12 o'clock.
Lizzie gave us 1 and then 2.
You know, I don't got my book here. Do you know if that's a bigger chapter? Or?
No, off the top of my head.
Let's see how many pages it is.
I can tell. I don't know that I'm very good at telling by looking at the ebook. That's what I'm pulling up here. So I'm not sure that would give me much perspective unless I count.
Yeah.
Regular count, like how many Arya chapters is equivalent to have Arya 1 chapters is equivalent to.
Arya 1 was pretty dang short. Like I said, it was all world building, getting set up for a Clash of Kings, kind of letting you know where things are.
Yeah, I think the Nauticast podcast actually tied that into. I think it lumped into her first 2 chapters because they decided that it was all the same thing basically, or there wasn't enough to talk about in 1 episode. So they combined them.
We still have got to make this thing 37 minutes, so we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Wednesday, Sansa 1. Everybody have a good week. We'll see y'all on Hump Day. And y'all take care. If you got any more questions or anything you want to talk about, just throw in the comments for the next video. We sure do appreciate your questions.
Absolutely.
And y'all be good. Take care of yourself.
It looks pretty short to me glancing through this, but like I said, I'm not sure how good a judge I am looking through an ebook. I'm trying to figure out if it's long.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right.
But yeah, they're short. They're probably just setting up for what's going to happen to Sansa and everything. But y'all be good. Take care.
You too. Bye. Have a good one.